What's up, motherfuckers? I'm facing many Caro-Kann defense in the challenge of restraint in CSCOM, but I'm playing so well against the Caro-Kanns and I mostly won. And I have another two videos commenting two games of Caro-Kann, both instead of with bishop f5 with c5, but I always playing e5 in this challenge to create more funny games. But okay, this time my opponent chose the move bishop f5. Again, I had another two games with c5 in this challenge. Okay, my opponent go with bishop f5, and here I select knight d2. The plan of knight d2 is for play knight b3 next, and then knight f3, bishop e2. Was more or less similar than the main line, because here the main line was knight f3, and now the white's plan is bishop e2, knight d2, knight b3. Okay, knight d2 first is more or less similar. The other day, Wesley saw won a very good game against Sankler that you have in the channel with h4. Okay, I go with knight d2, e6, knight b3, knight d7, knight f3, knight d7, bishop e2. Okay, that's the main theory of the Caro-Kann. And here, black's main move was a6, followed by, well, black has just like two main moves. One was a6, most employed nowadays. Ukes won a great game in the Grand Swiss of FIDE, long castle, e5. Yes, that's one of the main ways to play with black. The other was knight c8. The idea is just leave the e7 square for the bishop to can castle. Like for castle, that's another line. Here bishop is g6 was other option just to give the 5 square for the knight to can develop this bishop. But my opponent plays c5 with a mistake. But I don't respond well to c5. Here the best capture was knight takes c5 was the best move. After knight takes, d takes, knight c6, here bishop e3, defending c5. And for example, if whites can to blacks try to put pressure into the center with bishop g4 to take on f3 and to take on e5, doesn't matter. We are going to go short castle. Bishop e7, and here bishop e5 or c4. And okay, black can goes with queen c7 too. And here the same. We just castle and bishop b5 pinning the knight. We just take the knight and b4. Just taking control of the center with these two pawns, and just defending the c5 pawn, who is so important. f6, a4. But instead of that, I take with the pawn, who is a mistake. The difference is that after knight d6, the position was worse because now both knights are attacking on e5. So for example, if I just play bishop e7, e3, no, now no, he cannot take because after I have bishop e5. But here he can play something like, for example, bishop d4 here, putting pressure into the knight, and after take here, he can take with the f knight on e5. The difference in the other lines is, for example, knight e3, bishop e3, bishop g4, short castle. If he take here, after, I can take with both, but okay, maybe with the pawn, which is slightly better. Knight here, here. I have, for example, f4 breaking the position, and this is better for white. Or yes, for example, bishop e2 is the other move that I really like here, threatening bishop b5. So d takes c5 was worse because now black is attacking the pawn on e5 with two knights, and looks like the knight on d7 is attacking c5, but is attacking e5 too, and the knight on b3 is only defending c5. For that reason, the knight was more useful to change because the black knight is better than my knight. But okay, I take with the pawn, knight c6, short castle, and here my opponent make a huge mistake, allowing to me open the full position. Here he has to attack the knight with bishop g4 or bishop b4. Instead of that, he takes the pawn, which is a huge mistake. Knight takes, sorry, knight takes. And here I had a great tactic that I never saw before, which g4, attacking the bishop, g6. But it's easy because after f4, knight moves, doesn't matter where. Knight d7 or knight c6, f5. And yes, the bishop is trapped. I have a piece up. I have the, or with bishop e4 is the same f3 and f4. That's That's funny quiz with material. But I miss this idea. Can I just play bishop b5 first? Just giving check. Then I cover and now c4. Logical open the position. Here white is completely winning too. Of course, take the piece was easier, but here I just completely win. a6, just go back with the bishop. He takes. Great, here look like my opponent have the completely open position. This knight is also weak. He have no tempos to develop the bishop. Okay, of course, knight d4. Yeah, I was thinking about that, attacking the bishop. But the move that I select, I completely prefer. Queen f3. The idea is simple, just rook d1 at the following move. If he takes the knight, just rook d1, then take on d7 and just win. But okay, my opponent plays queen c7. I attack the knight. Bishop f4 really was fine, but the rook d1 is completely win, of course. Bishop d3, bishop f4, queen c8, and now we'll simply have for five pieces developed, 5 pieces, and he only have 3. And the queen is defending, the knight is pinned. And what is the black strongest piece? The d3 bishop, because it's blockading the d5. So I just decided to take the d3 bishop to open the d5. So take d3, and just rook d1, followed by rook d3 or queen d3, and just the knight on d7 is going to suffer so much, of course. Bishop here. And of course, I was thinking about queen d3 or rook d3, but the problem is that black have b5. For example, if rook d3, here black have b5. Blocking my bishop is queen d3, the same, b5. Of course, this was possible too, but I really like what I played, knight c5, queen takes, and bishop d7, because I saw that he cannot take with the king. This was his only move. And now I have many ideas, for example, bishop e6. So, okay, he can go to e7 too, but for example, queen takes d3, followed by bishop d6, black is completely lost. So he take on d3. First, I thought about queen takes d3, because he cannot move the queen, because this is checkmate. And this the same queen and bishop d6. But okay, he have queen d5, queen b3, and I'm winning the queen and the game. But I saw that queen takes b7 was easier because he just should go back, and I take one rook and then the other rook. If the queen c2, I can play rook f1, but just give check was enough, and if I need resign. And that's a good game. I learned interesting things. First, that was better to take with the knight on c5 instead of with the pawn, which is logical, of course. And then the tactical idea with g4, g5, and sorry, g4, f4, f5, and take the bishop when the knights are on e5 and the bishop are on f8. The 9 day of the challenge was so bad. I lost the majority of the game, but at least the last game I made an interesting game to show with us. So let's see if I really want to reach at least 25 as early as possible to be in a good way to reach the challenge. Bye bye, motherfuckers.